So earlier today, some news came out here from Ian Rappaport that says Giants free agent linebacker Isaiah Simmons is visiting the Packers today, source said. An intriguing potential addition. Simmons has played for the New York Giants for the past 2 seasons, a 2020 number 8 overall pick by the Arizona Cardinals. So the Packers are contemplating signing Isaiah Simmons, which is why they are bringing him in to visit today. And Simmons is an intriguing story just because he was the number 8 overall pick in the NFL draft in 2020. And then just about 3 years after that, the Cardinals trade him away for a 7th round pick. And so it's very clear that what the Cardinals thought he could be, he didn't end up, fulfilling all those plans that they really had for him as a versatile guy who many thought could play linebacker and safety. And when we look back to that draft, I was looking up some quotes from different people's thoughts around that time, and there's a reason he went in the top 10. There's no doubt he's incredibly gifted physically. He had one of the highest relative athletic scores among linebackers in NFL history, ran a 4.3940. So I fully understand why people at that time viewed him as a guy who could really become a elite type player in the NFL. But here's from David Hale. He wrote this on the day that Simmons was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. Here's from an ESPN article written by David Hale. He says, Simmons has blossomed into the prototype for a new type of defender, a hybrid who can rush off the edge, shadow a runner from sideline to sideline, or cover the fastest slot receiver an opposing coach can find. Simmons is the answer to all the questions the modern spread attacks have forced upon defensive coaches. And then here's from Michael Renner from PFF in an article back in 2020. He said, Simmons' ability to blur the linebacker/safety positional designation is going to be a defensive coordinator's best friend to the next level. Simmons is the definition of what you want in a modern linebacker. So unfortunately, things have not really panned out for Isaiah Simmons. As I said, he got traded to the New York Giants in 2023 for only a 7th round pick. So to get a guy in the top 10 and then have to trade him away, the fact that you're even willing to trade him away before his contract expired, it's pretty crazy. And I think that it sort of shows you how even, looking at this draft, the 2025 draft, so often guys don't end up panning out like most people thought they would. And so for Isaiah Simmons, he had some really great moments with the Cardinals. If you look up some of his highlights, he still had some interceptions, pick sixes, sacks, and I think that sort of happens when you are the type of athlete that Isaiah Simmons is. But he just was not consistent enough to really reach that level of play that you would expect from a top 10 draft pick. Then he goes to the New York Giants, and his snaps continue to decline from his time with the Arizona Cardinals. And it's not because he was dealing with, any kind of injuries or anything like that. He played in 17 games in the past 4 years, each of the past 4 years. So he's been relatively healthy or very healthy during his time here in the NFL. But in 2023 with the Giants, his snaps dropped down to 378 after being at 897 a year prior in Arizona. And then in 2024, going into that year, he signs a 1-year, $2 million contract with the New York Giants. And his snaps went from 378, these are defensive snaps, in 2023 to 181 snaps in 2024. And so he's just been very inconsistent. The past 2 years, he's had really high missed tackle rates, 16.4% in 2023, 18.2% in 2024. And looking at Simmons, as I read from some of those pre-draft thoughts, people saw him as that hybrid type safety linebacker, and that's what the Cardinals did. They utilized him in that way when he was in Arizona. He was playing all over the field, and if I pull up his snap counts right here, during his 3 years with the Cardinals, he played 1,086 snaps in the box, 436 snaps on the defensive line, 645 snaps in the slot, 63 snaps at free safety, and 67 snaps at outside corner, and that is per PFF. And so they used him all over the field. And so, now the question is, what are the Packers thinking when they're bringing Isaiah Simmons in? I think first off, one thing to keep in mind is he was a pretty solid special teamer the past couple seasons. With the Giants, he played 224 snaps on special teams in 2023, 146 snaps on special teams in 2024. And looking at his special teams grade per PFF, it was 75.4 in 2023. This past year was 88.2 And so when we compare that to the Packers defensive players, the highest graded Packers special teamer was at 80, around 82 for the grade last year. And so that's someone with Simmons where he could come in and be a solid special teamer for the Packers. And when you look at the fact that last year he got a 1-year, $2 million deal, and then he played less snaps and was less productive, I assume that if the Packers or any team were to sign him, he'd probably be going for a minimum deal, close to $1 million, around that range. And so it's not like you're having to spend up as if he's a top 10 draft pick. And so I think that because of that, if you're the Packers, this could be a smart signing. He's been a solid special teamer. He is a guy that is very gifted. And let's say he comes in and is just a special teamer. I think he can potentially, be worth what the Packers pay him. And then you could start to potentially try him out at some different positions defensively because he has played in the slot, in the box, at safety. He's at least tried, has played at all those different positions over the years. And so you could just try to bring him in, test him out, see how it looks, and maybe from time to time use him in different ways out there. And I don't expect him, if he does sign with Green Bay, to suddenly, get to what people thought he would be, being a top 10 draft pick. But he's someone that the Packers could utilize. And when you look at the Packers' current linebacker depth, for now, it's enough. But, when it comes to, as we get closer and closer to the season, I was reading from Bill Huber. He brought up, the need to have closer to maybe 7 or 8 linebackers just on the roster during training camp. And so that could be the case here because currently the Packers linebacker room, they have Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyrone Hopper, Christian Welch, and so they do need more depth, and Simmons could bring that depth, have some, be some solid competition for some of these guys and become a special teams fit for the Packers. And so, as I said, if you had to pay him $5 to $10 million, this would not be, I think, a risk the Packers should take. But if you're having to pay close to $1 million and you have a guy who can be productive when it comes to special teams, then I think it's a move that could make a lot of sense for the Packers. And, reading into Simmons and just seeing all that's gone down from his time in Arizona to where he is now, it's pretty crazy sometimes, how when you look at some of these draft prospects, as we head into this 2025 NFL draft in the next few weeks, a lot of signs can point to a guy being an elite player. And then for whatever reason, some guys come to the NFL, and even guys who were productive at the college level like Simmons, sometimes things just don't pan out. And so that's why I feel like in hindsight, looking at a lot of draft picks, it's easy in hindsight to say, oh, how did no one realize that this guy wasn't going to be able to reach that level of play? And sometimes it's just hard to predict how guys will translate from college to the NFL. So we'll keep an eye on this, see if the Packers decide to sign Simmons. But those are sort of my thoughts on the situation. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.